the truth is that even when you have found some financial success in life, sometimes stuff happens that you weren't exactly expecting, or major life situations like what you were describing, right? Whether it be an illness or a loss of a job or whatever, can really set people back. And so it's awesome to hear, first of all, that you have a really positive outlook, because the truth is that I think it's not about the setback. It's about, the comeback aspect of it, and how you are framing up your mind, right? And putting yourself in a good place, because the truth is that the only thing that we have any control over is how we react, right?
And this doesn't apply just with finances. This can apply to anything in your life. I heard a saying a while back, a man or a woman has two lives, and their second life begins when they realize they only have one. So by taking something like that, it's like, okay, well, what do I have to lose? I have nothing to lose unless invest in myself and in this whole process. And let's see where this is going to lead us, and come from learning to deal with the things that we clearly did not want to deal with.
I talk a lot on my podcast about intentionality and about alignment, because I think that as a society, we have pushed a lot of things down people's throats that don't belong to them, right? Just because you are trying to live intentionally and trying to live aligned does not mean that it's always going to go according to plan, right? Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified. I am your host, Jacqueline, or Jax Crider, and today we have a good friend of mine. His name is Jonathan Habecker. He and I went to high school together, and he's got a very unique story, which I'll let him kind of share more of. And so welcome, Jonathan, to the show. Thank you for being on. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and a little bit more about your story and why you're excited to be on the show today.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. This is all kind of like a brand new experience for me. So the fact that this gets to be my second podcast, first on video, definitely looking forward to this for sure. But like Jax said, we've known each other since high school. And my story kind of starts pretty much over the last 5-6 months, where things have really kind of gotten interesting. But background for me, pretty much been in Texas my entire life. Private school for high school. Went to Baylor University. I spent the last 17 years in sales, working for beverage distribution companies. And the way God has slowly worked in my life is back in May, I was diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver. And things were not going well. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we're thinking, okay, we have to get a liver transplant. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, then my liver starts to regenerate itself. As we know, the liver is one of the few organs that can actually regenerate its own health. So it went from basically just almost shutting down and me being on my deathbed to all of a sudden, okay, I've got a new outlook on life here. God is restoring my health, and it's been quite a journey. But throughout that journey, it's not just all ups. You get broken down to the bare bone, and it's basically just, how do I claw myself out of this situation? And so the last 3 months of living with my folks here in Plano have definitely been an eye-opener to really get back on my own 2 feet as far as health, but also when it comes to my wealth and my finances and being able to actually support myself on my own.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think so often, like when we have guests on my podcast, and just even me in my own space, and it's why I talk so often about some of my own challenges and problems, is I think so often people have this idea in their head that, well, it's easy for you guys to say that, right? Because you guys have had all this financial success, you've had all these, different things. And the truth is that even when you have found some financial success in life, sometimes stuff happens that you weren't exactly expecting, or major life situations like what you were describing, right? Whether it be an illness or a loss of a job or whatever, can really set people back. And so it's awesome to hear, first of all, that you have a really positive outlook, because the truth is that I think it's not about the setback. It's about, the comeback aspect of it, and how you are framing up your mind, right? And putting yourself in a good place, because the truth is that the only thing that we have any control over is how we react, right? Like we don't get to control, what is happening around us. So we don't get to control so many different aspects of our financial future, even when we're being intentional and being aligned. Sometimes life just comes up and smacks us right upside the head, whether we like it or not.
Yep. Nope. That's very, very true. For me, it's kind of a scenario of, and this doesn't apply just with finances. This can apply to anything in your life. I heard a saying a while back, a man or a woman has two lives, and their second life begins when they realize they only have one. So by taking something like that, it's like, okay, well, what do I have to lose? I have nothing to lose, even more because me personally, I've lost everything. So let's go on ahead and let's invest in myself and in this whole process. And let's see where this is going to lead us and what is going to actually transcribe and come from learning to deal with the things that we clearly did not want to deal with.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and I think, I talk a lot on my podcast about intentionality and about alignment because I think that as a society, we have pushed a lot of things down people's throats that don't belong to them, right? That they haven't taken the time to step back and live those kind of intentional lives. Just because you are trying to live intentionally and trying to live aligned does not mean that it's always going to go according to plan, right? And a lot of times when you end up in situations like I know one of your struggles was the aspect of like sobriety and whatever. And sometimes, in my opinion, some of those things crop up because you are not exactly happy with where you're at, right? Like you are in essence self-medicating. So I have never had an issue with drugs or alcohol. That's never been my personal struggle, partly because my father, my grandfather actually literally smoked and drank himself to death. And I saw the effect it had on my father. And so I refused to do that. And so I'm very bullish in personality. So I just was like, hell no. But I had my own version of struggle. Mine was shopping. So, I would just drown myself in things, right? To make myself feel better about whatever it was that was going on in my life. Like I was like, I don't like these rules. Well, I still have to follow them. I still have to try to go down this path I don't really want to walk down. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to go out and spend $300-400, just blow it because it makes me feel better, right? It's like the warm fuzzy feeling, although it only lasts for so long and then it goes away and you realize, oh crap,
Very
like look
fleeting.
at all this debt that I've created.
Yep. No, and that's one of the fun things is when we're in those like times of like turmoil, we're always, or at least for me, I was always looking for someone else to blame. So like with me, like going through Alcoholics Anonymous and working through the 12 steps, things definitely apply to alcohol, but then those steps also kind of help you learn more about yourself. And we always want to put the blame and say, oh, well, because of this over here or this person. Like, no, you're in control of yourself at the end of the day. And if you can't control yourself, then you have to look inward and try to figure out to the best of your abilities, what is it that I'm trying to put like the emphasis or the power and the control on something else rather than diverting it all directly to me. And then once you realize at the end of the day that you are exactly the problem and not somebody else, then your mind is slowly starting to free up itself to be able to actually function and think and operate the way that it should be.
Yeah, that's so true. Well, and I mean, it's so interesting, all these old sayings, right? Like the silver lining. And I really have tried to force myself, especially through the last couple of years of just crazy turmoil in my life with our crazy house situation and financially just kind of being destroyed in a lot of way, my industry slowing to a slow crawl, and what that has meant for me, not just financially, but also kind of on the sense of to your own ego, right? Like I was always an incredibly successful mortgage person, and then now, I'm zeroing multiple months, and you know what I mean, like in all these different aspects. And I have tried to force myself into a place of gratitude and seeing the silver lining, if you will. And what's crazy is when you start walking down the path of true gratitude and you step back and you try to be really mindful of it, and when you try to look, even when it's like really, really small things, you find that there really truly is a silver lining to literally everything. But it's not always easy to see because it absolutely is easier to blame the situation, the scenario, the person who hurt you or whatever the case may be. It is very interesting what starts happening in your brain, and not only in your brain, but what happening in your body when you literally take the attitude that everything is for your good. Even the quote unquote bad things are actually there for your good. When you look at it that way, it really does, like, everything changes. And I literally thought, because I'm a very logical person, that that was so woo. I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. In fact, I don't know if you remember her. There was a person that we went to high school with. Her name was Rachel Sinner, and she was literally the most positive person I have ever met. Every single thing that happened, she found the silver lining just naturally. It was just bubbled out of her. And at the time in high school, I was kind of annoyed with her. Like, I was kind of like, can you not make everything positive? But now I realize that perspective, that way of living is such a more healthy and aligned, and just light yourself up and allow you to live your true purpose so much more than the way that I tried to be so logical. So, well, these are the facts, and these facts are bad, and so the situation is bad. So it's just interesting how gratitude can really change. Is that something that you have found, or that they sort of teach you through that process?
I mean, yeah, gratitude is definitely something that, thinking about it, like, yes, gratitude to the sense of thank you for basically putting me through this, because not only do you get to learn about yourself, but then you can take whatever negative is happening that's going on, and it may not happen immediately, but things happen over time to where you're like, okay, I had to go through this just because I needed to learn from this. And now, because I've learned from it, now I can apply it to whatever might be going on in your current situation. So the feeling of gratitude and thankfulness is much easier to see later on down the road. Because if you're in the moment, whether it's silver lining, glass half full, glass half empty, whatever it might be, just, I would say most normal people have the aspect of like, okay, this is negative. Like, this is going to hurt. This stinks. Like, why is this happening to me? I do this great. I do this well. I help out here. But it's like, well, what I've seen is when you grow the most, you're going through the most that you can possibly go through when times are
For
bad.
sure.
If times are all good, what's the saying? Like, weak men are created under like good times, and then like strong men are created when there's weak times, whatever the saying is. But yeah, if you want to grow, you have to like just suck it up and deal with whatever you're dealing with, because that's the only way you're going to get better. And then once you actually see those things, in my opinion, the gratitude and thankfulness is just astonishing. It's absolutely amazing.
I think you do definitely have to be intentional, though, to try to go through that process, because you have to come sort of to your own awakening and your own self-awareness. I feel like you have to do this with many, many things in life, because the truth is that awareness is sort of the cure to a lot of ails, right? Without the ability to kind of come into your own thought process, to understand, you know what I mean? Like, you and I were having the conversation before we started recording, that living with my parents made so much self-awareness, right? I understood so much more about myself, about my patterns, about, the things that I love about myself, and maybe some things that I didn't love so much. And I wanted to make some adjustment to. I wanted to make some changes to. And I think right now, from a financial aspect, what I'm seeing is the economy has been fairly rough for the last kind of couple of years, right? We are seeing a lot of people having to make step backs, right? Maybe like you and I, moving in with family members for a period of time, right? Or they're finding themselves in rough situations where they're getting evicted or they're getting foreclosed on. And I think so often that's obviously not anyone's intention, right? When they went out into the world and like kind of was making their own path. But it's so important to remember that oftentimes, like you said, how are diamonds made? Under pressure, right? So it feels like an awful situation, or it feels like a setback or step back, but it's all about perspective and understanding that maybe sometimes you're put in that position to make you into the diamond you were supposed to be. And it is hard when you're experiencing it, when you're going through it, right? When you're having those bathroom floor moments of just ugliness. I'm sure that your entire perspective changed the second they were talking to you about, oh, hey, you might have to have a liver transplant to like stay alive, from everything else that you have been thinking about or experiencing, right? From from earlier on.
Yeah, no, it's funny that you mentioned the comment about how our diamonds made. There's a country artist that's out there, and one of the lines of his song is "If pressure makes diamonds, how the hell am I still cold?" And I think it's very in depth to the sense of things don't just happen immediately; they take time. It's like cooking, smoking a brisket or like a pork shoulder or something like that. You're tempted to want to open that lid and just kind of look inside and see how everything's going. Like, no, leave it alone. Keep doing what you're doing. Let the things that are supposed to be happening happen. There's a reason for all this chaos. And it's so hard to see something along those lines. But the more that you get into the process and you trust the process, you start to begin to understand why these certain things are important. And just take solace in the fact that nobody gets it right the first time. Nobody gets it done perfect and accordingly with every single step. And you're going to have to fine tune things in life, especially when it comes to finances. For me, I mean, it was something to where I had built up like crazy amount of savings, 401k, all that great stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, everything's good. And then all of a sudden, knock at the door, and it's like, hey, my name's Alcohol. I'd like to spend some time with you. And before you know it, you've literally lost everything. And you have to decide, all right, am I a fighter or not? And if you're going to fight, then start fighting. Fight with everything that you have. And for somebody like me who's making $9 an hour plus tips right now, when I was in the six figures for a long, long, long time, it's very humble. And it's definitely an aspect of, okay, God, what are you teaching me here? And how am I going to learn from this? But also, how am I going to apply this on every single level that's going on? And you just have to trust the process.
Yeah, for sure. I think so oftentimes when we are starting to come into our awareness, our reaction is that we either want to blame somebody. We've talked a little bit about that. We also want to muscle our way back. So we want to force the issue, right? Like just sort of force it down life's throat. And so like you were making the illusion of like when you're cooking a brisket and you have to kind of just let it be or whatever. For me, that's very hard. I am a very naturally successful person, right? Like if you know anything about human design, one of my things is the natural. So people will see that I am naturally good at a lot of things because of the way that my brain works and the fact that I research things at the hilt and all these different things. And so when resistance come, I'm used to being able to just muscle my way through it, right? I just figure out, and I'm Taurus like the bull, and I just push that so far forward. And the truth is that sometimes you're right. We have to step back and realize that us muscling our way through it or trying to force the issue, so to speak, right? Like we still have to keep taking aligned intentional steps, right? Forward, forward, forward. But on the same token, we can't try to force something that can't be forced, right? Sometimes it's a process when you're kind of coming into your own and coming into your awakening. And if you would have asked me 5 years ago, are you the expert about money? Do you understand money and how it works and operates? I would have said emphatically, yes, absolutely, right? I've worked in mortgage for damn near 20 years. I've done property and casualty insurance. I've sold life insurance products. Like I have a law degree. Like I've done all of these things, right? To like make myself the expert on money. And then the bottom falls out of so many different things, and everything you thought you knew and every way you thought you should frame up the conversation just disintegrates. And it is very humbling. It is also very eye-opening to lack of control. Like I joke because my dad says, oh, God's always dealing with you on control. I'm like, oh, no. If I had any illusion that I had any level of control, that just got stripped out in the last like 2 years of time, because I realized that, again, all I can control is me. And where am I placing my intention? Where am I placing my alignment? And how am I taking intentional steps forward? But the actual outcome is out of my hands. Like I can't force that. There is nothing I can do to make that be what I want it to be. I just have to be taking those appropriate steps. And where it's going to end out, I mean, I know that if I keep walking forward, it's going to end out in the place it's supposed to be, but that may not be exactly the original destination that I had in mind.
Yeah, it's like the concept of trying to put a square shape inside of a circle. And depending on how, like talking about forcing, yeah, hey, something square can fit inside of a round circle, but it has to be a precise size. So, okay, how do I fine tune it just a little bit more to make sure that this actually works? I think it's the whole point of taking like individual like thought and sayings, where in the Bible says, "Be slow to speak and slow to anger." Well, I would say you could apply the exact same thing into what you're doing in life in a very specific hands-on situation. You've got an idea of how to go after it, but like if you brainstorm just a little bit more and be like, okay, what really is the best way to attack said issue? And you could have a plan, and then God might just say, you know what? Sorry, I don't like your plan. I got a better plan. Here's what we're going to do. And then you just have to be able to still adapt and change, because at the end of the day, you're reaching that common goal that you set for yourself, but it's not the way that you wanted it to actually happen and in the time frame that you wanted as well.
Yes, I don't disagree. I also think that with that, when you do have it going a specific way, when you set your goal and you set your intention out from a financial aspect or any other way, and then you think that it's supposed to transpire a certain way, right? Like, well, I was supposed to hit this step, and then I was supposed to hit this step, and then I was supposed to hit this step or whatever, and that doesn't happen. That also is what strips gratefulness and thankfulness out of your life, because you're so caught up in your vision of how this didn't go according to the plan that you set out, that instead you can't see the way that it all laid out that was actually better, right, than what you originally had thought. And it's funny because I think when I was a little bit younger, I really thought, because I am a very intentional person, I really thought intentionality meant that you had all the steps in place, right? Like it was like a checklist, and this is your goal, and this is the exact checklist of exactly how you get there. And okay, great, I did this step, check. And then when step 2 didn't go the way that I thought it was supposed to go, then I was pissed off about it, right? And I was so angry, like I couldn't see the forest through the trees at all. I was just like so in my own head. And so it's funny because when I decided to create this podcast, and it was about your life, your terms, right? And financial mastery being about how your life is supposed to look and what you want as your intention, right? And what is your God-given, purpose in life. A lot of that had to do with throwing the checklist out the window. That, yeah, okay, you can have some baseline like ideas and rules that should govern maybe like our path forward. But if you believe that some checklist is going to lead you to the promised land, it probably is not, because the checklist is going to change so many times. The roadmap is going to, there's going to be a detour on the roadmap. They're going to be doing construction like they're always doing in Texas, whatever that is. And you're going to be so focused and pissed off about the construction vehicle in front of you that you can't see that you got to take this other beautiful road that was, had beautiful trees and flowers and plants and things you would never have seen had you stayed on the original path.
Stay tuned. We'll be back right after this message from our sponsors.
Imagine having the power to control your financial destiny, no matter where you start. Welcome to the Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform, where financial education is tailored to your unique journey. We cover everything you need, from basic budgeting and saving strategies to advanced investing and retirement planning. Learn at your own pace with lessons that match your level of experience. Whether you're a beginner or looking to enhance your financial knowledge, join our community of learners and benefit from shared insights and expert guidance. The Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform equips you with the skills and confidence to take charge of your financial future. Ready to master your finances? Enroll in our courses today at the Financial Mastery Simplified course and resource platform. Start your path to financial independence now.
Visit us at fms.tips and fms.college for more information.
Hello and welcome to PBJ Mortgage, where your home ownership dreams become reality. Today, we want to share why choosing PBJ Mortgage is the right choice for your home financing needs. At PBJ Mortgage, we're built on a foundation of values that drive us every day. Our commitment to educate, empathize, and empower our clients sets us apart in the mortgage industry. Our clients are at the heart of everything we do, and their success stories speak volumes. With years of experience, our team possesses in-depth knowledge of the mortgage programs, ensuring you receive expert guidance and the best possible rates. We offer a diverse range of loan options to suit your unique needs, including conventional, FHA, VA, and more. No matter your situation, we've got a solution. At PBJ Mortgage, we pride ourselves on providing personalized service. Our dedicated loan officers are here to guide you every step of the way, making the process as smooth as making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. We understand that time is of the essence, which is why we've streamlined our processes for efficiency and convenience. Transparency and clear communication are paramount. You'll always know where you stand throughout your mortgage journey. Reach out to us today to set up a call to discover your options. If you're ready to make your home ownership dreams a reality, contact PBJ Mortgage today. Let us empower you during this exciting journey. Phone number 4-693-733-107 www.pbjteam.com. Visit our website or give us a call to get started. We look forward to helping you secure your future home. PBJ Mortgage, where home begins.
Thanks for your patience.
Yeah, no, there's what's the saying? Take the road less traveled. And yeah, by the way, I mean, just the amount of construction that's going on right now, especially over in Plano, it's just like, goodness gracious, like how is this even happening? But yeah, that's the other beautiful thing though about like taking a different route than what you had is you have no idea what this route's going to look like. But as you're actually on the different routes, then as you're saying, like you're noticing this, you're noticing that, and look at these flowers. Oh, I didn't know there was this massive grove of trees, whereas I'm looking at a highway with just like massive buildings going by all the time. So you've got to be able to actually be open to change in order to change. If you're just going to go by your checklist and put it down there, I mean, yes, that can probably give you like a sense of accomplishment because you got everything done that you wanted to get done on your checklist. But very rarely, I would say, does the checklist always kind of work out the way that you wanted to in the time frame that you wanted to, and then did it accomplish what you were actually wanting to do? And there are certain times and certain situations where, yes, that'll definitely be the case. But I'd be willing to bet that more times than not, you're having to revise that list for the most part. It's like a chef. He gets all the ingredients that he wants to use for the day, and then all of a sudden he realizes throughout this cooking process, whatever, like, oh crap, I actually need this one other thing, or I need this, I forgot to get that. And all of that, when you combine it together, it makes just that perfect bite of food. And I think that's something we can really apply to our lives, especially in financial mastery, because, and that's also a fun phrase there, like financial mastery. Okay. I'm thinking of masters as far as like martial artists, things of that nature. But like financial mastery, like you can be in control of where you want to go and what you want to be able to do. It's just what steps do you have to take in order to get to that spot where kind of you do have, in essence, financial freedom.
Well, I was going to say, part of the reason that I try to bring on so many different perspectives, you know, experts in money, people who are not experts in money, and everyone in between, is because people have to understand that each and every person has the ability to achieve financial mastery as long as they are walking down their aligned intentional path, right? Financial mastery doesn't look the same for every single person, doesn't follow the same rules, right? We were uniquely created and individual, you know, we're individuals. And so this idea that we're all, and I think society has really done us a disservice in making everybody believe that we all need to follow down this same path, right? I talk a lot about on this podcast, a lot about college, not because I don't believe in it. I mean, you know, I have 2 different degrees. Like we went to private school. So education is incredibly important to me specifically. However, I am anti you doing it for the sake of somebody told you so. I am pro, hey, you know, this is going to help, you know, yield me down the life that I want to live for whatever reason that may be. And I think that so oftentimes we get very, very caught up in, well, what is everybody else doing? And I want to do it that way. And we haven't stopped to ask ourselves, like, is this actually what I want to do? Is this something that is me? And I guess I've always been the oddball in that I've always sort of bucked the system. Like I can only do the rules to a point, and then I just get to a point where I'm like, I just can't. I don't care if that's a rule anymore. Like I don't care. I'm not doing it. In fact, you probably will find this funny. A guy that we graduated high school with, that you played football with, Matt. He and I reconnected for a professional reason, and he was telling me, "Yeah, well, you were always so weird." And I was like, "Thanks, Matt." And he meant it in a loving way, not
Larson?
like a what'd you say?
Larson?
No, a beer mocker.
Oh,
And so he was like, "You were so weird." And I think what he meant by that is I always beat to the tune of my own drum. And he's not wrong, because I don't think that one path works for everybody. It's actually, as weird as this sounds, it's actually why I struggle sometimes when I'm creating programs where, I'm sort of giving a path of like helping reset yourself or things like this, because I have to be very careful. I don't want you to feel like what I'm giving you as setting your financial intentions and things like that is what I would do, because who cares what I think? Like I say all the time when I help people buy a house, I'm like, look, I don't have to pay the bill. You do. So it doesn't matter if I think this is a great idea or not. I can tell you what you qualify for, what based on what the information you gave me, what makes the most sense probably. But ultimately, you've got to make and own that decision. And so oftentimes we are, I think, as a society, trying to force ourselves into a box in which we don't belong. And so financial mastery sometimes doesn't happen, or it like I said, it yields to other self-control issues because we're looking for control somewhere else, because we don't have it in this big aspect, because we're trying so hard to follow this checklist of a perfect life, a perfect financial life, or a perfect, whatever kind of a life. And it frustrates me that is what our society has become, because man, like when people break outside of that mold and they embrace their weird, so to speak, like such amazing and great things happen. But yeah, I mean, you got to step into it.
yeah, no, kind of reinventing the wheel with us being the wheel. It's fun to be able to fine tune it yourself based off of you. Yeah, you can look at a diagram and follow the steps that someone else took, and that might work. But at the end of the day, I would say whatever works for you, that's how it needs to be tuned up. Definitely, like what we were talking about earlier, throughout this whole process, I always knew that I was kind of a little bit more independent. But after dealing with what I've been dealing with, yes, the whole aspect of being independent and used to doing things my way was never, it didn't work. And sadly, it took some very negative things for me to realize that it didn't work. And for me, I'm the type of person where I will gladly take advice from somebody rather than someone just saying, you need to do this or you need to do that. And it's like, that's a quick way to kind of get me to shut down. But if we can actually sit down and be like, okay, here's what you're saying, you think I need to be able to, or what I need to be doing, please, can we kind of like explore that and actually see what that looks like? Then I'm able to understand, okay, this makes a lot more sense than what I was doing before. Let's adapt these changes into my design. So
yeah, I love that. I think that that's the other thing is, for me, financial mastery, it's an ongoing process, right? It's a learning process. And I think financial mastery, when you are 20, looks different than when you're 30, looks different than when you're 40, right? Will probably look different for me than when I'm 50, and on and on and on. And I think that you're right, like as you sort of come into your own, you do need to sit down and, talk and look out for people, whether it be experts or otherwise, who can give you that perspective. But it shouldn't just be like, well, Jonathan, here's a list, here's a checklist. You're doing this wrong. And this is because I agree with you. That's usually the first way that you get me to like want to flick you off and say, no, dude, that's not for me. I don't like it. I'm not doing that. And again, I think that as a lot of people right now probably are struggling, they're struggling because you and I were talking a little bit before this about AI and how AI is changing the game in so many different respects, and is, like I told you, I don't think it's going to officially take anybody's job, but what it is going to do is it's going to create layoffs because there's going to be less people needed to do the same amount of work. And so, as I was explaining to you, we're kind of coming into this place of what I like to call the awakening. And what's going to happen is that original thought is going to be so prioritized. And so this avoidance that we've had to lean into our original thought. And I think truthfully, the younger generation is actually doing a better job of leaning into that original thought, of leaning in to things that are unusual and not societal norms anymore, right? Because they're a little bit more used to it. I feel like the 20 somethings have a little easier time shifting. Maybe the older we get, the little more set in our ways we get, and we don't like change, and we don't want to deal with that. But as a lot of those things are happening, I'm going to encourage people that are listening to lean in to the uncomfortable, because a lot of times what you're going to find when you sit in your own thoughts, right? And maybe this has just happened to you where you've gotten laid off, or this career that you thought you were going to have for your whole life is now sort of not being phased out, but being diminished significantly due to technology changes and changes. And so I'm going to encourage you to lean in to what is your unique purpose, because we all have one, right? What makes you tick? What wakes you up in the morning? What do you love to do, right? What doesn't really feel like a job to you? And things like that, because so oftentimes we just have been running on the proverbial hamster wheel for so long that we haven't had a chance to step back and look at it. And now financially, you're getting the choice whether you want it or not. And so your perspective can be, oh my gosh, this is happening to me. This is horrible. And my whole financial future is destroyed. Or you can see that it's happening for you, and that it could be a most beautiful thing if you will just lean into it and take the opportunity that is being given to you, even though it doesn't really feel like that, to find your own version of not only financial mastery, but life mastery. And it's right there in front of you.
Yeah, no, for me and my situation specifically, it's like if all of this had happened when I was married and with kids, the impact would have been infinitely worse than what it is. But because I'm going through all of this stuff as a single guy with no kids, just two dogs, the pain and the struggles, it's very much more isolated. Yes, it definitely affects other people. It affects families that are family members, but nobody was ever really like dependent upon me to provide for them. So it's like, in a way, I'm blessed that I didn't have to let more people down that I loved throughout this entire process, rather than it just being on me. And that's the whole fun aspect of, I guess, almost the illusion of mastery, to the extent of you can master things, but then that's just one thing to master. Then you move on to the next one. Then you move on to the next one. And it's like, for me, like, I'm just starting down at the nitty gritty. Like, okay, let's be financially stable to support myself completely on my own, without the help of anybody else. With guidance, absolutely. Give me the guidance. I would love to take the guidance. But then after that, then it's like, okay, well, now how do I save to all of a sudden get to that next level where I want to get? And there's just, it's almost like maybe there's an illusion of like, ooh, I've finally reached the top. No, you just reached this peak. Now you got this peak over here. And so this was the saying in climbing false peaks. You think you get to the top and you're like, crap, now I got to descend back down just to go back up this next one again. But it's just that fun whole process of learning about yourself and the growth that you can gain throughout all of this mastery. And it can be insanely uplifting.
Yeah. Well, and let me reframe what you said about letting people down, because I don't think that are you maybe making some people's lives, family members' lives, slightly more uncomfortable than what they're typically used to? Yeah, you can potentially say that. But somebody made a reframe to me when I had to move in with my parents, and I appreciated it, because this particular individual had lost his mom not horribly long before. And so I was kind of whining to him about having to move in with my parents, because I am very independent and I don't like to sort of be under anybody else's rules. Again, there's that rule aspect for me. And he said, man, what a gift. And I was like, what? And he was like, what a gift that you get to spend time like that with your parents and see them so frequently or whatever, right? I would do anything to be around my mom like that again.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me step back, and I was like, wow, yeah, like I definitely did not appreciate every single moment I was in my parents' house. I will be very honest with you. I did not appreciate every single moment. However, it really made me take a step back and realize that, again, it's that perspective. Like, I hadn't looked at it that way, right? And you were talking about you didn't have more people to let down, but the truth is that, like, I had a lot of people that you could argue that I was letting down, but I didn't let anybody down. And why didn't I let anybody down? Because I didn't let it best me, and I was continuing to move forward, and I forced myself, whatever. My toddler didn't care that if I was making, $12 an hour or 100 grand a month. Like, she didn't care. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm still mom, and she still loves me or whatever. It is hard because you do feel more financial pressure when you have more things, right, in your life. But I will tell you, when it comes to mastery, again, we have to continuously reshape our brains, because what's interesting is, and I've done lots of talks about this, but we actually are born with scarcity mentality. And so it's why financial mastery is so difficult for all of us, is because it starts at the base level of getting rid of the scarcity. Like, we have to, and a lot of the ways you do it is by resetting your nervous system, as well as forcing gratefulness and thankfulness into your body, and like basically reframe. And it's not easy, and it's definitely a practice, and it's definitely something that has to be done over time, but it is so incredibly important. And it's definitely not easy. And it's definitely something that, if you are really independent, you are going to constantly reframe that I've done this wrong, or, oh, I've let somebody down, or whatever. And the truth is that's not the truth. In fact, if you ask people, because that's the other thing I started doing, I started raising my hand and asking for help. And that was one of the hardest things I ever did, because I was always the go-to. I was always the one that helped everybody else. I was always the one. And I prided myself that I didn't have to ask for help. And then I read a book called Who Not How. And I've talked about this book on the podcast before. And I realized that there's no shame in asking for help. And in fact, it gives people a lot of ability to feel important and needed. And there's this whole other thing that happens when you give people the opportunity to step up and step into your life. And it also then makes you want to be able to give back what you can to who you can give back to, right? That they're lifting you up and you're doing the same thing. You're reaching your hand out and you're lifting them up too. And it is, it completely changed my life. Just some of these conversations and these realizations and the self-awareness. And I'm like, holy crap, wow, how blessed am I? How lucky am I to be able to do all these things and to be living this day and age? And again, it sounded so cliche to say, but when I started stepping in, and so this conversation has been so amazing, and thank you for coming. Do you have any last minute thoughts? And if people want to reach out to you a little bit more about your story, I know some people may have gone through some of the struggles that you are going through, and they may need the leg up that you can provide them.
Sure. Yeah. I guess one little thing here is, golly, it was just there, and now it's fleeted. It's gone off for a quick second. So one thing my dad has always preached to me. My dad is a former pastor, but he's like, Jonathan, life is about building relationships and being able to work with others, interacting with others. Like I said, I'm an independent person. Well, isolation can be a very, very bad thing if,
for sure,
like, left untreated for a very long time. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to help our fellow human being, man, woman, whatever it is. And it's kind of like with me dealing with everything that I deal with being an alcoholic, is everything that I've learned, what good does that knowledge do if I don't help somebody else? And it's the same with anything in life, especially with financial mastery. So if I can take something like that and apply it to my life and be open to others helping me, and at the same time be able to help somebody, which I may not know how that help is actually going to look or what that process is going to be like. And sometimes people just need an ear to listen. And that's it. But we have to be ready to be on call for one another. I firmly believe that. And yeah, if anybody wants to reach out to me, I have no problem or issue with it. My spelling will be laid out here, but it's jonathan.habecker@gmail.com. JONATHAN period HABECKER, like haha, you're laughing, Becker. So easy way to remember it. But yeah, this whole process has been fun. Thank you for having me. And I'm definitely taking some things that you have said during this podcast. And there's things that are going to be applicable right away. So I appreciate the time.
I appreciate that. And so hopefully you found this episode of Financial Mastery Simplified helpful. If you are struggling to figure out some of this or whatever, please always check out. We have tons of free resources for you to try to help you reach whatever level of financial mastery you are looking for. And so we look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Financial Mastery Simplified.